we have been talking about the astounding prophecy of specifically the Grecian Empire. Remember, God had promised that the Grecian Empire would succeed the Persian Empire. And when God gives us these details about leaders and wars and the way that this unfolds, remember, all of it has a focal point. And let's be careful not to get lost in the weeds. We're talking about all of these historical characters and these wars, these skirmishes. But remember, the focal point is the nation of Israel. The focal point is the people of God. And sometimes when all the details are being discussed and we're talking about these wars and these powers that be and the fights that they have with each other, we can forget that the very reason for all of this prophecy is God is caring for his people and God is being faithful to his people. So specifically yesterday, we talked about the skirmishes, the wars really between the Ptolemies, who are over Egypt, and the Seleucids, who are the kings over Syria. Well, if you look at a map, smack dab in the middle of Egypt and Syria is what we call the Holy Land, or Israel. And so in order for Egypt to march against Syria, she would need to march through the Holy Land. In order for Syria to march to Egypt and vice versa. And God's people, the land of God's people, really becomes a staging ground for war, for battle, and for control. And whoever controls that area really has an upper hand because of the strategic importance of Israel as a geographic region. And we've seen that throughout history, that Israel really, when you look at it, is in the middle of the world. And all the continents in that part of the world converge by Israel. Europe nestles up against Asia, comes up against Africa. And so Israel is just very, very important geographically. The Via Maris is the main road that goes along the seacoast, the Mediterranean of Israel. It was one of the major trade routes of the world. And then as you took the Damascus road up towards Syria and then around the Fertile Crescent, going back down to the southeast along the Euphrates River or the Tigris River, now you have the major trade routes to the Far East. So it was just a major, major important spot, obviously. And the most important reason why Israel is important is because that's where God placed his people. So yesterday we talked about the tension between Egypt and Syria and the assassination of Antiochus II by his first wife Laodice, and then her assassination of Antiochus's previous wife, who was the daughter of the king of Egypt, remember, Ptolemy II, because she was suspicious of her. So all of this is going on right now. Look at verse 7, Daniel chapter 11 and verse 7. But out of a branch of her roots. So verse 6 ends with the assassination of Berenice and the people that are with her. But out of her roots, Berenice. So Berenice is the Egyptian. Okay, the one that had married Antiochus II, and for a brief season, those kingdoms were in harmony because of that marriage. Well, the Bible says now that she's been assassinated, out of her roots. In other words, somebody related to her. We even use that kind of language today. You know, the roots of a family. We talk about roots referring to people that are of the same family tree. So here, the Bible says that out of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. So this actually happened. The brother of Berenice, I think it was Ptolemy III, arose, and of course, he is extremely upset because this treaty that his father had effected with Berenice had been abrogated. and she had been assassinated. So now he's kind of taken up as a vengeful brother, but also as a vengeful representative of the Ptolemies, of the nation, and they're coming up against the Seleucids. He's filled with rage, verse number 7. Verse 8, and shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods with their princes, with their precious vessels of silver and of gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Okay, so Ptolemy the third will go to Syria. He will fight with a big army. And by the way, this was all prophecy to Daniel, but this is all history to us. This all happened just exactly the way God said it. And so the Bible says that this man will go and he will win against the north. Well, that happened. Ptolemy went and fought against Seleucus II, and he did win. Remember, that was the son of Laodicea. Well, when he defeated him, he went back to Egypt, and the Bible says he lived longer than Seleucus II. And that happened as well. He lived 4 years longer. So down to the most minute detail here in Daniel chapter 11, it's all taking place. Now, look at verse number 8. And he shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods. I'm sorry, I just read that verse. Verse number 9. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. In other words, Ptolemy will have won this battle. He will have survived. He will have lived longer than Seleucus. He's going to come and reside in his own land, which is Egypt. Now, verse number 10. But his sons, okay, the sons of Seleucus II, okay, but his sons shall be stirred up. See how this works? Boy, one wins, the other ones get upset, they're angry, they retaliate. It's going back and forth, seesaw. And remember, Israel is in the middle of all of this. So now that Seleucus has been killed and his army has been vanquished, they've been vanquished by Ptolemy III, Seleucus has a couple sons, one by the name of Seleucus III and one by the name of Antiochus III. Okay, so that name is significant, and we're going to find out why on Monday, okay? So just hold on. Look at verse number 10. But his son shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. So, interesting, the sons of Seleucus, they're going to rage and go against Egypt. But the Bible says, specifically in verse number 11, they shall come forth and fight with him. Verse 10, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. So that's a reference to the way God's people will be affected. Overflowing the country and occupying Israel. See, it's at this point that Israel, it starts to become a real pawn in this game. And her country is overwhelmed. And she is now being subsumed into this battle, dragged in. And now this is going to ramp this up, because you touch God's people and God deals with you. Remember the Abrahamic covenant? I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse them that curse you. So as Israel now is being negatively affected by this tug of war, we're going to see the way by which, God miraculously, providentially protects his own people. Look at verse number 11. And the king of the south, remember that's the Ptolemy line, Egypt, shall be moved with choler or anger, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north, and he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand, and when he hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. For the king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy kingdom shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fail. So ultimately, the king of the south will be stronger. Ultimately, the king of the north, the Antiochus III, will be defeated, but his heart will be lifted up in pride. He'll have victories, but not final victories. The king of the south will retain kind of the control, and the anger of the king of the north will continue to fester. And that's important, because in anger, something is going to take place against God's people that is going to be horrific. And that horrific thing is going to be so terrible that not only will it forever be remembered and be predicted here in Daniel 11, and then remembered, but also it'll serve as a precursor to a much more horrible thing that will happen. A thing that will happen in what we call Daniel's 70th week. Okay, what you and I would call the tribulation. When this Syrian king that we're going to talk about on Monday really becomes a symbol of the king that we know better as Antichrist, that will horribly hurt God's people and will be demonstrably judged by Jesus himself in the end days. So what's the big rock thing that we need to keep in mind before the weekend comes? The big rock thing is that God has his eyes upon his people. God protects his people. And when circumstances rage to the north, circumstances rage to the south, and when the circumstances of this world seem to mess up our lives, please understand that's not messing up God's plan. That God is still working. So we, like the people of God, sometimes feel as if we're just pawns. What can we do? We're powerless in a society that's raging, has its issues, is jockeying back and forth. We're caught in the middle. Well, listen, my friends, take heart. God's eye is upon the sparrow. His eye is upon you. He has a plan for your life. Philippians 1:6. He's bringing it to pass, and you can trust the sovereignty of your great God. That's a great thought to bring us into the weekend. I hope you have a special day on Sunday, and we will see you back again. I lied. Not on Monday. It's Memorial Day. We'll see you back again on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. God bless you, my friends.